Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Hope you're all in good form and a happy new year as well. Okay, today I'm going to be showing you some CD purchases from charity shops or thrift stores as you call them in America, and these were in the price range of 3 for £1 up to a maximum of £2. Okay, first up we've got DAWES and the album Passwords, and this is on the Hub label, and it was their 6th album released in 2018, and it's produced by Jonathan Wilson, really brilliant guitar player, singer-songwriter, influenced by the Laurel Canyon singer-songwriters of the 1970s. I've seen him live a couple of times and he puts on a fantastic show. Anyway, Wilson's production on this is very clear with the vocals high in the mix, and what you get is a very slick late 70s soft rock sound. Taylor Goldsmith's vocals remind me quite a bit of Rick Roberts from Firefall. That's a name for the kids to conjure with. And highlights on the album include Stay Down, which has got a beautiful Spanish acoustic guitar solo, and also Feed the Fire, where they sort of stray into Steely Dan territory. Next up, it's Neon Rainbow, the best of the box tops, and this was put out by Sony Music, and it's a budget release to tie in with a TV advert. The packaging is really naff and there's no liner notes, but the music does sound great. It was mastered at Sundays Studios by Bob Irwin, who's the owner at the Sundays record label. Alex Chilton's blue-eyed soul vocals really impress, and it's amazing to think that he was only 16 when he recorded the earliest of the tracks on this album. Next up we've got the Wave Pictures and City Forgiveness on the Moshi Moshi label, and I paid £2 for this in a charity shop. I've seen them live and I was blown away by guitarist David Tattersalls' very nimble guitar picking style. This is a double CD and it comes from 2013, and Tattersalls' guitar playing and quirky lyrical couplets managed to keep your attention over the two CDs. Next up, it's Mr. Fox and Join Us in Our Game, and this was put out by Castle Music. They were a UK folk rock band that released a couple of albums in the early 1970s, and they've been gathered together on this CD. Their unique selling point was that they used acoustic instruments, including various wind instruments, and it gives their music a real melancholy feel. The original songs, in the style of traditional folk songs, have lyrics with an eerie pagan feel to them, and you could imagine the tracks working well in the original version of the Wicker Man film. Next up, AC/DC, The Razor's Edge on Epic, and this was part of a 3 for £1 deal, and this is a 1990s release, and opening track Thunderstruck is a real classic, and the guitar riff never lets go of its stranglehold, and Brian Johnson's vocals are particularly strong on this track. I also like Money Talks, which is a rousing Slade-esque chorus, although the backing vocals on it are a little bit too clean for me. This one, Bad Company, and it's Straight Shooter on Atlantic. Again, this was part of a 3 for £1 deal, and it's their second album. It's released in 1975, and they're a supergroup with Paul Rodgers and Simon Kirke from Free, Mick Ralphs, who'd been in Mott the Hoople, and Boz Burrell from King Crimson. The sound never drifts far from blues rock, and the live in the studio feel to it means that the album hasn't particularly dated. Simon Kirke's drumming really drives things along, even on the more anonymous mid-tempo tracks. And the hit singles, Good Lovin' Gone Bad and Feel Like Making Love, are the real highlights here. Next up, it's Balaklava by Pearls Before Swine, and it's on the Abraxas ESP-Disk label, and this was part of a 3 for £1 deal as well. And they were an American psychedelic folk band led by Tom Rapp, and this is their second album, which was released in 1968. The songs remind me a little of early Tim Buckley, although the vocals are far too straight-laced and middle of the road for me. I was hoping for more hippie rebelliousness. The cover of Leonard Cohen's Suzanne is painful to listen to, but the best track here is Translucent Carriages, and it's got acoustic guitar, poetic lyrics, and a whispered backing vocal, which gives the track a very hallucinatory feel. Moving on, we've got MAWKIN CAUSLEY and The Awkward Recruit on the Navigator label. And this was part of a 3 for £1 deal, and it's a coming together of Devon folk singer Jim Causley and folk instrumentalist MAWKIN. Causley's vocals remind me of Martin Carthy, and the multi-instrumental skills of MAWKIN means that they can move effortlessly from fiddle-driven English folk to more experimental fare. I particularly like the tracks where the emphasis is placed on the melodeon or acoustic guitars. There's an energy and youthful vitality which is hard to resist here. It's a beautiful album which reveals new nuances upon every subsequent listen. Next, Shot of Love, Bob Dylan on the Columbia label, and this was a 50p purchase, and it was the third of his Christian albums. You get two classic songs on here, the bluesy The Groom's Still Waiting at the Altar, with Dylan revelling in often non-sequitur amusing lines, and Every Grain of Sand, with opaque poetic lyrics which sound profound without piling on the happy clappy god rock. It's more doubting and questioning and open to interpretation. Dylan's vocals and the musicianship of the band are exemplary, but I could have done without the cod reggae on the track Dead Man, Dead Man. And this one is Antonio Carlos Jobim and Friends on the Verve label. This was a 50p purchase. And it's a live concert in Brazil in tribute to Antonio Carlos Jobim, which took place towards the end of his life. It would work better for me as a DVD because I find myself wondering who's on stage for each of the performances. Highlights include a couple of instrumentals by Herbie Hancock. Shirley Horn provides exquisite vocals on The Boy from Ipanema. Gal Costa provides a larger than live performance on a couple of tracks, and best of all is Jobim's heartbreakingly emotional vocal on Louisa. I can't imagine that there was a dry eye in the house. Moving on, it's a CD single by Kate Bush coupling Rocket Man with Candle in the Wind. It's on Mercury. This was a 3 for £1 deal. She was very big fan of Elton John in her childhood, and she does two cover versions obviously of Elton John songs here. Her version of Rocket Man has a reggae beat which is a little cringeworthy, although her vocals are stunning on this. And Candle in the Wind isn't a success for me. The swirling synthesizer strings and the backing vocals sound a bit like a demo. Next we've got the John Renbourn Group and A Maid in Bedlam. And this was put out by Castle Music, and it was part of a 3 for £1 deal. And it's a 1977 recording, and this was the only album released under this name. The group includes Jackie McShee, so inevitably they recall somewhat the sound of Pentangle. It's mostly traditional arrangements, but it's given an Indian or Eastern twist by the presence of Kashavi Sati on tabla. Next up, it's The Greatest of Dizzy Gillespie on RCA Victor. This was part of a 3 for £1 deal, and these are 1940s recordings by a big band and also by a septet. And the most fascinating tracks here are those inspired by Cuban rhythms. I'm thinking of the tracks Manteca, Cuban Bop and Swedish Sweet, and these must have sounded particularly groundbreaking in the late 1940s. And moving on, this is the self-titled debut album by Earth and Fire, and it's on rotation, and I paid 50p for this one. I used to hear this band, this Dutch band, quite often on the pirate radio station Radio Carolina, Radio Mi Amigo, which broadcast off the coast of Holland in the mid-70s. Until now, though, I'd never actually owned anything by them. This is their first album, which came out in 1970, and the opening track, Wild and Exciting, is the standout. Jörny Kargman's voice is really as strong as Grace Slick's. You get stunning harmonies and psych guitars, which add to the appeal as well. Next, it's Grizzly Bear and Shields on the Warp label. This was a 50p purchase, and it's the fourth album by these indie rockers, released in 2012. I must say I prefer their third album, The Catamist, where the angelic vocals and harmonies really made my spine tingle. Shields is a little less polished vocally, making it more of an effort to fall in love with the performances. Although musically, though, it's really adventurous and definitely a grower. Next we've got the Lilacs and the album The Lilacs Rise Above the Filth on Widely Distributed, and this was a 50p purchase. And it's a name that was new to me, but I had to get it once I saw in the small print that a couple of the tracks were produced by Jim Ellison. I was obsessed with Ellison's band Material Issue in the early 1990s after reading about them in a power pop fanzine called Yellow Pills. Sadly, their career ended in tragedy with the death of Ellison. As for the Lilacs, Jim Ellison was their friend and mentor, and he named the band. They were a four-piece power pop rock band from Chicago, and they wrote power pop tunes with strong guitar parts, a bit like Television but with rougher edges. This is an excellent CD, and it's possibly my most treasured charity shop find of the last few months, maybe even longer. They reformed in recent years and recorded a CD EP, and that was produced by Richard Lloyd, the Television guitarist, of course, and one of their musical heroes. Okay, that's it for today, and I will see you again soon, so take care.